Hello, Reluctant Messenger Unleashed listeners. Welcome to episode 11 of the Reluctant Messenger Unleashed. I'm your host, Donna, and with me is author Candy Sanderson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
We are ready to finish Chapter 3, Father Time. We last left on page 41. During the last episode, we talked about the POE, the point of existence, and how can we use that to experience time differently? Candy, would you tell us a little bit about that to bring our listeners up to date?
Sure. Our POE, point of existence, is our awareness. It's our full awareness. So it often stays really close to us, to the point that many of us, like me, we think that we are our physical bodies. When the POE stays close by, we experience time like this demonstrates, from point A to point B, a straight line. That's the way I thought time worked. But when we learn to allow our POE into the field that surrounds us, and first of all, I use the word allow because the POE, the point of existence, is always seeking its tribe, it's seeking source. But depending on how far our POE extends into the field, we begin to see and hopefully respect how fluid time is. We realize it's not a straight line, but instead a wavy sine wave that affects how we perceive time.
Oh, Candy, that's really interesting. During that last episode, you said we can use the POE as a tool for exploring consciousness. Can you elaborate a little bit on it this time? Can you tell us what that means? And again, we're going to be sharing some examples, but what does that mean?
Throughout my communications with the messengers, they've been giving me these wonderful tools to use for consciousness exploration. So it's not only that I get to hear these words of wisdom, but I have a tool that I can carry, in my consciousness awareness toolbox and use it for later. But for me, once I fully recognize and embrace the point of existence, the POE, and how it works, you can begin to see how you can use it. During the last episode, Donna, you said something about when you see it as a dot, it becomes a tool for us to use. And I thought, that's so smart. You are so smart, Donna. That's exactly right. Let me explain how we can use this by looking at the picture at the bottom of page 42. This shows the POE during a near-death experience. Your POE is no longer a dot, but it becomes a large bubble, and your awareness rockets away from your physical body. You're able to look back and see that body. This is in total alignment with what the reports are from many people who have had near-death experiences. They see themselves floating above their body. If they're in the hospital or during a surgery, they'll look back and they'll say, and I saw my body lying there. But when we go to page 43, I want to read this one section. It says, the more sine waves contained in the expanded state of awareness, as the picture showed, the less a person is tethered to time and space, and therefore the more mystical the experience. And in the next paragraph, it says, we can expand our POEs and open ourselves to other energy fields. And this results in perception far beyond what our physical senses are able to register. By expanding our awareness, we shift the boundaries of present time, and we expand our consciousness, or our POE, to interact with others who might be out there. This brings us full circle to what we learned in the last chapter. We have the emotional guidance system, and that raises the vibrations of our energy field, making it easier for us to notice and really perceive these other energy systems. Once that's done, that paves the way for the energy recognition system to help us identify those very subtle, specific frequencies from our guides and our angels. Now, Donna, this picture is showing someone who has a near-death experience, but you've actually had one. Can you share that with us, please?
Yeah, and it really, you've given us vocabulary for what I experienced. When I first died, and I went through the veil, it felt as if I was moving, that I was moving. And I went through a series of, oh, I'm dead. What's that going to mean for my family? Then I was concerned about people that were left behind, but I had rocketed out so fast that when I looked back down, I started to look back down. I was looking really at the earth, kind of like if you look at my background picture, it was almost like that. So I was no longer just hovering above my body, but I really sent my POE up to the creator of the universe. And yeah, I began able to have all kinds of beings and dimensions around me that was immediate. Um, but you don't have to have an NDE to learn how to do this. I just wanted to explain to some people, if we're talking about these things, but you might want to know, how do I do this? So here's what I would recommend, or this is what I do. First, I close my eyes. I have an intent on where I want to go or what I want to do in a general sense. Like if I want to fly my airplane, I have that intent, or I want to place myself where I worked in Switzerland. So I'll have that, and I'll say, this is where I want to start, and I'd like to hear from my guides on the next most important thing I need to know. So I just let my imagination start me off. Close my eyes, have that intent, let my imagination start, but I let go of what I expect. So I set that intention, but then I'm still, I'm letting whatever happens. And I have Dr. Scott Taylor's mantra from the near-death experience on go with what you get. So that would be how to start a mystical experience, or start you on the path of your emotional guidance system. Kenny, do you have
Well,
something? Do you have something like that?
yes, yeah, I was just going to say,
Okay.
let me share my how-to on mystical
Okay.
experiences. Well, first of all, the way it happened with me, I'm just driving to work one day and it just happened. That was pretty lucky. But over time, I've learned so much from the messengers. I do a lot of the same things you're describing.
Okay.
I let my imagination prime the pump, and then it takes a life on its own. Now, my imagination can be like yours, flying in a Cessna, but don't laugh at this, Donna. But
Okay.
sometimes I literally put myself into that sine wave as a dot. I mean, I literally see myself as that dot. I expand it into a bubble, and then I just literally shoot off in any direction. Now, remember, the sine wave represents time. And so I can literally put myself back in time or forward into time. So for me, the POE is literally a tool. But the key here is to use whatever it takes. And whatever you use, whatever is right for you, it will work.
And Kenny, you gave us some examples. If you go to the top of page 44, this is another way of starting off with these examples. And when I wrote in my book, you have a formula in the middle of the book. What I wrote, or what I got out of it, I said I had step 1, move your thoughts into your heart. Number 2, let your heart transform them and move them out 3 into the surrounding energy fields. And it's very close to your example. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And how'd you come up with these examples?
Voila, what you described, Donna, is exactly what happens. But first of
Okay.
all, I didn't come up with these examples. Remember, I'm just the transcriber, and these were like visions that the messenger showed me. You're using some kind words when you describe these as being unique. I actually think they're kind of bizarre, but they're examples from the messengers. And remember, in the past, they would give me a scenario or a message that didn't mean anything to me, like the spirit of art or music, but it meant a lot to you. So this must be for someone else out there. But let me explain the formula that you see:
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts, the energy, and the action. Energy follows thought, action follows energy. When we realize that our thoughts are energy and that energy is required for action to occur, until I had connected with the messengers, I had never really thought of my thoughts as energy, but learning that they are and really embracing that, Donna, I don't know, it transformed me.
Yeah.
Now I really get it. I understand the significance of thoughts. But all of this begins with awareness. That starts an energy match process. So, energy follows thought. And going to some of these examples, they show us how to get rid of these pesky thoughts that run through our brain. This first one on page 44 talks about using a butterfly net to swoop those energies, thoughts, remember, are energy, from the brain. And next in this vision, they dump these thoughts and they're in the form of this like grotesque, thick, dark blob into my heart. And next on the top of page 45, this dark blob transformed into these miniature spheres that then just bubbled away. And although this was a pretty detailed vision and a little bizarre, I thought it worked. It's like, okay, those repetitive thoughts, swoop them up, dump them, get rid of them. If that doesn't work for you, the next vision was another suggestion, stuffing all these thoughts into an elevator. That elevator would travel down my spinal cord from the brain to the heart. The door opened and released these into my heart. And then from there, the messengers let me know that I could take control. Whatever imagery I wanted to use, they could be the little spheres again that would bubble away. I could imagine them as dust mites, as balloons, as smoke. But this was a really good example of using whatever imagery you wanted to move those thoughts from your head to your heart and then push them into your field. And then it's easier to release them. The key here is play with it, make it up, have fun. But once you realize that your imagination, your thoughts, will create action, then you begin to understand how powerful thoughts are. Do whatever it takes, let your thoughts create the action. For me, I like using that little proverbial dot, my lovely POE, and I use that to just take me places.
Candy, I love what you said there, especially about play, because play is the theme of my life and motivates me. So what we learned is that we can visualize the dot. I love that dot, love that imagery. Move our dot and move our dot, our POE, into the surrounding fields. But I have an interesting scenario for you that I wanted to ask you about. And it's, I was very young. I was going to school in Texas. I was in a little Volkswagen Beetle, you know how small they are. And I was driving on my way to work and the sun was in my eyes. So I did not see a stop sign. So I traveled through the stop sign into an intersection. What I didn't know was there was a school bus barreling down on me. So I'm in the middle of time slowed down. I'm in the middle of the intersection and I looked over to my right and I could see the grill of the school bus. That's how close it was to me, the grill of the school bus. And I looked back and I held on to the steering wheel because I just knew that school bus was going to cream me, was going to T-bone me. The next thing I realized is I was parked over on the side of the street. Now it was a manual transmission, so you would think if I took my feet off the gas in the shift, the car would have stalled or whatever. But when I got over to the side of the road, I was in park. And I kind of came to, and I wanted to know, did I move my dot? did the dot move was it moved by my guardian angels? Who moved my dot?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a great story, and it brings up some really good questions.
Okay.
Remember that picture on page 42? Your POE started in a very small position within your body, behind the steering wheel, driving the car. As soon as you saw what you thought was inevitable, your POE catapulted from its current position. In this case, you didn't intentionally move your POE. Your guides did, your angels did. I mean, who knows? But somehow your POE moved outside of time and space. Going back to that picture on page 42, it jettisoned into your field. This is important. Now that we know about the POE and how it influences time, we can learn to jettison our POEs. We don't have to wait for it to occur naturally. We can actually take control. And what you did, you didn't take control. Someone, guide or angel, took control for you. But you witnessed how fluid time was during this event. You actually ended up, you closed your eyes, and then you ended up immediately, who knows, time changed, totally away from the accident, and your car was in park. How did that happen?
Well, we're learning how. We're learning how it can occur by us moving our POE, our full awareness, visualizing that dot. And even though I might not ever get an answer for who moved my dot, I know without a doubt something happened in time and place and protected me. So it's really important to me that now I can learn how to control it, that I can move it into the surrounding field. Not only that, but do it with thoughts.
Yes, and that's when we took a look at these obsessive thoughts, like those hamster wheels that are spinning and spinning and spinning and going nowhere in your brain.
Yeah.
We are in our brains when we have these obsessive thoughts and we can't get out. So it seems like our obsessive thoughts, that's where our awareness is. Using that dot imagery or whatever works for you, the butterfly net, using the elevator, we can actually use that to move the energy into our hearts and then out into the field. What I was beginning to learn was this was another example of the power of the heart and how heart energy is important in connecting us to the non-physical realms that surround us. That field that connects us to all that is. When our awareness is within an expanded state, that's when we can influence the past and our future. It's all through the heart.
You're right, Candy. And heart and heart energy is another huge key to all of this. And I think that you answered my question on what happened to me that day in the car. It had to be about heart. So I think that's a huge key. Let's continue. Let's go on to page 45. And the chapter ends with a dream that you had about time. And then it continues over to page 46. And we see that September 23rd, the 2015 message, as the message begins, they're discussing the dream that you had. Time being passed hand to hand, just as your dream of a pocket watch being passed from one generation to another. But let's go ahead and what I had circled on that page and what was important to me. What humans thought was magic will be demonstrated as truth. There is no time. There is no separation. There is only love. There is only now. And I love this part. Nowhere is nowhere. This was huge to me. Time is just time was just a trick. And as I saw in my car accident and in my NDE, it was all about love. So let's continue on that. I'm gonna move down a little bit. I'm gonna say the shift is occurring. We feel the energy vibration of Gaia, the living spirit of Mother Earth, as her transcendence unfolds. And skip down a little bit more. And it says on the bottom, oh yes, things are happening now. Time to rejoice and celebrate. For a great awakening is upon us. A shift in consciousness across the earth. What does that mean? What is that? Are we shifting? What's going on?
What's happened is we've come full circle now, understanding that time, as we know it, doesn't really exist. It's related to who we think we are And if we're closed, our POE won't stray. And that's when we observe time as a straight line from point A to point B. But when we allow our POEs to enter that surrounding field, we begin, Donna, to actually taste truth. And the truth is, we are all one. And as the messengers say, there is no time. There is no separation. There is only love. There is only now. Nowhere is now here. When we recognize that we are timeless and we're not separate from all that is, we can then begin to live authentic lives. We are not separate points on a map. We are beings of expanded awareness. We are connected to all across all dimensions, including the dimension of time, past, present, and future. But these messages, especially this last one, I didn't realize how important that was or how significant it was until 2020, last year when the pandemic hit. This was one of many messages that have now taken on different meaning viewed through the eyes of today. When I received this message, I thought, oh yes, evolution changes. And I've always thought, okay, yeah, evolving, that's in the future. Now, maybe I shouldn't have thought that, since this entire chapter, Father Time, continually talks about how time doesn't exist. It's very fluid. It's not sequential. But, here I was still stuck in that point A to point B model of time. But this was one of the first messages that really talks about the transformation of Mother Earth. The messenger's timeless words really hit home when I realized we aren't those isolated dots. We're not isolated islands afloat on the sea of life, but we are actually life itself.
Wow. Candy, even though I talked about my car accident, I talked a little bit about my NDE, but those are so many of the lessons that I learned when I was in front of Source, God, the creator of the universe. It's really timely. And I think what drew me to you in the book is I knew what you were saying were things I actually experienced. Yeah. Wow. What a way to end on chapter 3, Father Time. Wow. You guys, you got a lot of homework to do. But as a teacher, your next homework, we're going to chapter 4, Changing Perspectives. And I want you to get ready, because this chapter is the one I most marked up. It's in yellow, it's underscored, it has squigglies, it has margin notes. So until next time, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and we would love to have you subscribe, follow us. Until next time, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.